So this is how I trick my brain into doing really hard things like getting in this 45-degree ice tub. All right, so in order to do difficult tasks, we need to first learn about dopamine. According to the Cleveland Clinic, dopamine is a part of your reward system as something that gives you the motivation to do something in order to feel pleasure. From this definition, we know that an activity that doesn't give a person pleasure will be really hard to repeat. And on the flip side, an activity that gives a person pleasure, otherwise known as a dopamine hit, will be easy to repeat and actually make that person want to do it over and over again. Obviously, this can be a good thing or it can be a bad thing depending on the situation. Dopamine motivates us to accomplish our goals and better ourselves every day, but it can also cause you to become addicted to things that harm you or take you away from your goal. Now, a really interesting concept that I just learned is that dopamine comes from expectations, regardless of whether or not it's good for you. So here's an example of what I mean by that. You eat dessert because you expect it to taste good, even if it ends up upsetting your stomach afterward. On the opposite side, you don't do the hard work, even if it's good for you, because you don't expect any pleasure from initially doing it, since the reward comes once the hard work is done. So everything gives you some amount of dopamine, even activities that you do every single day. For example, drinking water when you're thirsty gives you dopamine, or taking a shower when you're sweaty, that gives you dopamine as well. Now, another really interesting thing is that rewards that give the most dopamine are the most random. For example, scrolling through social media, you have no idea what's going to pop up on your feed next. So that variance in, things you like to see and things you don't like to see, aka high dopamine posts and low dopamine posts, that is really rewarding for the brain. Now, the more dopamine you expose yourself to over a long period of time, the more you become desensitized to it, which makes it difficult to do activities with smaller dopamine hits. Things like working hard and reading give smaller dopamine hits compared to scrolling through YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, or even watching porn. So sort of think of it like the fact that people that drink a lot of alcohol, they have to drink a lot in order to get drunk because of the tolerance that they've built from doing it so much. If you do a lot of things that give you dopamine really quickly, that's gonna make it that much harder to do things that don't give you as much dopamine but are good for you in the long term. And it really rewires your brain to really look for things that give you that instant hit, most of which are not good for you, rather than doing things that are not as pleasurable right now, but often result in much better outcomes over the long term. So yeah, some examples of the things that give you that really fast dopamine are gonna be things like browsing the internet, watching TV, scrolling through your phone, your text messages, eating junk food, eating fast food, watching porn, stuff like that. When you do a lot of things like that, it literally rewires your brain to not want to do things like go out for a walk, go exercise, go to the gym, meditate, read a book, journal, even things like cleaning the house. So yeah, disconnect your dopamine from the things taking you away from your health and your goals and connect them to the things that are good for you and it'll actually help you become a better person and reach your goals. Think about the dopamine in the future and not in the present. I don't know if you guys can tell, but my skin is super red right now. I feel really, really good, energized. I always do these after lunch, so I feel like it gives me enough energy to get through the rest of the workday and feeling really good. So we talked about connecting your dopamine to your future and not the present, but of course that is way easier said than done. Let's explore two different ways that you can actually implement this into your own life. The first one is the cliff approach. So this is a really extreme method for people that need a full dopamine detox. Sort of view it as you being on top of a mountain full of dopamine, and all you need to do is jump off the cliff, leaving all those things behind. This is suitable for people that prefer to sort of like rip off the band-aid all at once. To do this, you basically are just gonna take away all the things that produce a high amount of dopamine and replace them with the alternatives that are better for you, but give you less dopamine. This is basically just going to lower your dopamine standards. And by dopamine standards, I mean the level of things that actually make you happy and affect you. For example, if you eat at fancy restaurants all the time and someone offers you leftovers, you'll probably decline. However, if you've been starving out in the streets and someone offers you leftovers, you'll probably accept really happily. If you take this approach, then doing hard things is all about just starving yourself of dopamine so that the lower dopamine activities can get done much more effectively. I truly think that this will have a big impact on the number of hard things that you're able to force yourself to do. The second approach is called the ladder approach. For most of you guys, this is probably gonna be the better choice, right? This is basically when you're going slow and steady, and it's for people that want to ease into the process of doing really tough things. What you wanna do is start with the activity activities that don't give you dopamine, put those at the start of your day, and then at the end of the day, once you've done all of the activities with low dopamine, that is when you can indulge in high dopamine activities. You basically start off with low standards so that the higher you go up the ladder, the more motivated you are. This is really suitable for people that prefer to slowly rip off the band-aid 1 centimeter at a time. That's a big reason why I recommend morning routines. That's a big reason why a morning routine has absolutely changed my life. It's because it forced me to do some of the harder things that don't give me as much dopamine, and that actually allows me to do harder things during the day. So an example of this in effect is starting your day with reading, meditating, exercising, and journaling. These things for a lot of people do not create that much dopamine, and that's why a lot of people just skip it, they don't do it. And yeah, our whole goal is to help you guys do these activities that, don't create as much dopamine, but have such a big effect on your future success. After that, you're gonna move into activities that are good for you, like getting work done, and then reward yourself with some high dopamine activity at the end of the day. Those are just two different approaches that I recommend you guys consider, but there are so many other solutions and things you guys can do during the day that really help you do hard things. Let's talk about those right now. First up is just creating daily rituals. And I know we talked about morning routines already, but that is an example of a daily ritual that can have immense effects on yourself. A 2018 study out of Harvard found that rituals increase people's sense of self-control and feeling of self-discipline. Another great thing about daily rituals is that over time, they become a habit, freeing up your mental energy and allowing you to focus on other things that require more time and attention. Basically, what you want to do is you want to take all the different hard things in your life that you don't really want to do, that don't really create that much dopamine for you, and package them up into a ritual that you do every single day. When you do this, doing those things becomes so much easier because once a habit is formed, doing it does not take that much mental brain energy. And then more in habits, if you guys have ever read the book Atomic Habits by James Clear, you know that the process of building a habit is divided up into 4 steps. There's the cue, there's the craving, there's response, and then there's the reward. I won't get too much into it, but basically cues are things in the environment that trigger you to do something. For example, when you hear your phone ring, you immediately check it because it's a sound in the environment that can distract you. A simple solution to that is just not to have your phone in the same room as the one that you're working in. On the flip side, you can actually set yourself up for success if you're able to take control of the cues in your environment. For example, having a separate room to work in if you work from home. That's one of the reasons why I got the studio. It's separate from my actual apartment, and that's because it allows me to remove a lot of distractions that I have at home, and that in turn allows me to do a lot of harder things, which is like sitting here and talking to the camera like this. And then yeah, for craving, response, reward, I'm not gonna get into that too much, but I definitely recommend you guys read that book by James Clear. It'll really show you guys how to more effectively build habits in your life. Yeah, turning an activity into a habit severely decreases the amount of mental energy it takes to do that thing. So for example, for the ice bath, since I have made that into a daily ritual, instead of taking, let's say 100 units of mental willpower, now it only takes me maybe 50. And that's just because I've turned it into a habit, something that I expect to do every single day. In reality, doing hard things just requires you to actually do hard things. The more hard things you do, the easier it becomes to do them because they no longer are considered hard. Rather, they're more like normal. That's why I like to shock myself by doing a bunch of things that most people don't like doing. I really do think that that plays into the rest of my life. It helps me get into more uncomfortable situations that I normally wouldn't want to get into. And yeah, that has just immensely paid off in my life. Every good thing that's happened in my life has been because I've done something that was uncomfortable or hard. That's why I, for example, do the ice baths. That creates natural dopamine, but it's also super, super hard. And if I can do something like that, then everything is going to seem super easy in comparison. That's another reason why I take cold showers, right? Doing that allows me to think, hey, doing something hard is not actually that bad. In fact, it connects those hard activities with, the natural dopamine that it gives me and the feeling of relief and energy I get from taking that cold shower. So yeah, when I connect things like that, that really helps me be able to convince myself that hey, it's not gonna be too bad. I can just do it, and I'm actually going to be really grateful that I did that thing. This concept applies to working out, running, exercising, eating good food, doing a lot of deep work, putting myself out there in front of the camera like this, going to Newport Beach and asking strangers how much money they make. Yeah, overall, I can do a lot of hard things, but that's just because I've trained myself to look at hard things as normal things or easy things. You could sort of say you're gaslighting yourself by training your mind to not view hard things as hard. I don't know if that makes sense, but that's what works for me. And if you guys need any more convincing, difficult things are the things that allow you to live a spectacular life. All right, so just a little side note, because I forgot to talk about this while I was filming, but for people out there that are having trouble doing hard things, this is extremely important, so listen up. The thing that a lot of people fail to do, and this is something that I've struggled with before, is to do things long enough to the point where they can actually see the future benefit and get that dopamine rush from that positive reward or outcome. If you don't link these mundane and not really dopamine rich actions with the future reward, then it becomes really, really hard to actually keep doing it. So one thing that I've trained myself to do is, instead of thinking about the action right now and how much it's gonna suck and there's not really any dopamine involved, instead I think about the future benefit that I've already experienced, right? So I've done these things long enough to where I've experienced the benefits, and those benefits, that dopamine, is sort of what keeps me going and allows me to keep doing these things. So if you aren't consistent and you don't do these things long enough, of course you're not gonna see those benefits. And when you don't do that, you won't be able to make that neural connection between the two. And of course, that's going to make it almost impossible for you to keep doing these things. So yeah, associate the current action with the future reward, create that bridge, and instead of thinking about the thing you're doing right now, think about the future reward that you're going to get by doing that thing right now. That makes it, at least for me, way, way easier to do it. Hope that helps, and now back to the video. You absolutely cannot go through life doing all the easy things, taking all the easier decisions. And yeah, when you're presented with option A and option B, and option A is super easy and option B is super hard, the ones that really, really move ahead in life are going to go with option B, and the ones that stay stagnant and live in comfort, those are the ones that choose option A. So really, you guys have the option. You guys are faced with so many different decisions every single day. And if you can really train yourself to look at hard things as not that hard and actually really good, and that's going to affect your decisions on all these different things throughout the day, throughout the year, and in return, your self-development, your wealth, your friends, all that stuff, it's going to grow at an exponential pace. Doing the things that only 1% of people do allows you to live a top 1% life. And I know that for most of you guys watching this video, that is something you're going to want for you and your future family or your current family. And yeah, that's why I'm really passionate about making videos like this. Mindset videos, they get a lot of hate. I know the whole hustle culture is sort of overplayed and a lot of people don't like it, but mindset has such a big effect on everything in life. I think it's so, so important. And yeah, I really hope you guys got some mindset value from this video. Anyways, if you guys enjoyed the video, make sure to hit that like button and also subscribe for more content just like this. I make a ton of content about personal finance, investing, and entrepreneurship. Also, check out the description. We have tons of links to a bunch of free things, like a ton of free stocks if you sign up for Webull and Moomoo, as well as my free entrepreneurial newsletter, Hustle Club. Thank you so much for your time, and I'll see you in the next video. Peace.